All right, welcome into the Addison to 35th podcast. This is the first post-game podcast of the 2025 season. Cubs open up opening day in Tokyo, 5:10 a.m. first pitch at our time, Central Time, and they drop game one of 162, 4-1 to the Dodgers. I'm Ryan Herrera, and I welcome in Herb Lawrence. Herb, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me again, Ryan. Baseball is back. No matter what, I'm not a Cub or Dodger fan, but it feels good for the 2025 championship season to start.
Yeah, no, I had our old pal Luke Stuckmeyer on last week, and it was kind of like, oh my god, like we're days away from baseball, and I know this 2-game set in Tokyo is just a 2-game set, and they're going back for like another week and a half or so of camp or until the full regular season slate begins. But it is fun to have the game mean something, to have these hitters and pitchers and all of them playing for something that actually means something at the end of the day. Even though, up at 5 a.m. to watch an overall not the most exciting game. But yeah, so like I said, Cubs dropped this one 4-1 to the Dodgers. Herb, off the bat, I mean, just takeaways from that first game on either side, Cubs or Dodgers for you.
My initial takeaway is that Shota Imanaga is a solid top of the rotation pitcher. I mean, I know last year he pretty much showed in his rookie year that he's pretty solid in his own right, but I think people had a little doubts about a sophomore slump. Yeah, he only pitched 4 innings today, but you could see the effectiveness he had. We started up that third inning and got 2 runners on via the walk. And this is one of the main problem I think that happened in today's game is that Shota Imanaga pitched way too many pitches for the 4 innings that he had. And I think he got up to about 78 pitches there. So, but in that third inning, getting those 2 guys via the walk and then 1, 2, 3 outs after that, his 4 innings were pretty solid. Even though he walked 4 and only struck out 2, he knows how to pitch. And that is one of the things that many major league pitchers don't have. They might have stuff, but the actual understanding of how to pitch in the game and in the actual at bat that you're facing, I think that he has that mental acuity that gets the job done, especially in games like that, because that Dodgers lineup, even without Mookie Betts, is deadly.
Yeah, no Mookie Betts, no Freddie Freeman, but you're still like, yeah, this is a really solid lineup that he's going up against. No, I'm with you. I mean, I thought it was an overall solid start for him, and building off what he did in 2024 as a rookie. I think it was 69 pitches is when they and 4 innings, 69 pitches. That was the end of his day, and I believe Craig Counsell said to reporters out in Tokyo post game that right around 70 pitches or so was going to be like where they were kind of aiming for. I mean, if you think about it, you're still like you probably like considering when the Cubs left for Tokyo a week ago, like you're probably looking at another 3 starts in spring training to build up for regular season at the end of March had this whole trip not happened. So kind of makes sense that he wouldn't be ready to go 85, 90 plus pitches in that. Right. But yeah, I mean, he gets Ohtani out twice. Ohtani, arguably the best hitter on the planet. I'd probably say he is, but some might say like an Aaron Judge or whoever is. But yeah, I mean, gets him to I think he rolled over to second base to start the game, and then allowed out, but right at the second baseman. I want to say that was the third inning. So gets him, but gives up no hits in his 4 innings, but gets into some trouble with the walks. And that was, I believe it was 2 to lead off the second inning. Manages to get a couple pop outs and a fly out to get out of that. And then the 4th, another 2 walks there. But again, manages to get out of that with unscathed, 0 runs. And, looking back on his season last year, he never had a start with more than 3 walks. He only had 2 starts with 3 walks overall in his season. And I think only 6 with 2 or more. So 2 or 3, but he never had one with 4. So that is a little bit concerning. But you also take into account, like, it's the first start of the season for him. It is an earlier start than normal. And he was able to keep doing the things that he did well last year, which was, limit the damage, limit the runs that are being put up on the board. Obviously, he gave up 0, but like that was a big thing with him last year was he was able to just limit. I mean, he ended up with a sub 3 ERA. I want to say it was 2.91. Like he just doesn't let a lot of runners cross the plate. And so when you're facing the Dodgers, like that's a pretty important thing to do. And that's what he was able to do today. You know, was getting some whiffs, getting some chase, like we've seen from him throughout last season. Overall, a solid start to his 2025 campaign against the World Series champion. I mean, on paper, it's hard to name a better team in baseball history on paper than what the Dodgers throw out there. So, a very good start for him. It didn't lead to a win for the Cubs,
Yeah,
but
and
is what they needed from him.
You could. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
and you could see the
yeah.
difference between him and Ben Brown too.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I think we're getting a little interference. You could see the difference between him and Ben Brown because Ben Brown came in the game in the 5th inning and immediately walks Pages. Like, that's the 9-hitter. Like,
yeah,
let Andy Pages do Andy Pages things. And I know it's the first start of the year, so wildness will be part of the formula, as you were just talking about with Shota walking a career high 4 people in a game. But you got to pick your balance. You just say, hey, man, Pages, I know you got a little power. Hit it as far as you can. I'm not getting you on the bases for free when that beast of a man, which you call the best hitter in baseball, which I can't disagree with, is up next and Shohei Ohtani. That's the difference. Like, and then you get Ohtani up, and he does Ohtani things, gets his first hit of the year, and then that inning unravels, and you give up 3 runs, and that's the game right there. Because then the Dodgers, as you say, they bought everybody, and so they get the 5 innings out of Yamamoto. They cruise with their bullpen where they just keep on throwing in guys that are high priced. And you're like, golly, they got that guy? Man, that guy? And then Tanner Scott to end the game? Oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, he gave you a chance to win in the 4 innings he did pitch. And then you see the difference when you go to that second team and that bullpen. And the Dodgers still have enough to withstand 2 of their superstars who would be superstars on any other team being out for that game. And like, cool, we'll find somebody else to get the job done. Who was that former Cardinal? Tommy Edman will get a hit for us.
Yeah, no, Ben Brown, he was it 2 2/3 innings right after Imanaga, 4 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned, 3 walks. Did have 5 Ks, but obviously gave up the runs that were the difference in the game. I mean, he struck out. I don't remember who it was to strike to start that 5th inning. Rojas, he struck him out on 4 pitches.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, the curveball, the death ball looked pretty good all day for him. Like, it was getting some chase. It was getting that drop that you like to see from Ben Brown. But you're facing a bunch of good hitters, and when you're walking the 9-hitter in front of Shohei Ohtani, like, you're asking for trouble. And like I said, Imanaga managed to get Ohtani out twice. You're not going to keep Ohtani down for long if you keep giving him chances to hit, especially with runners on the bases. So that was part of it. I think overall, like, Ben Brown, once that inning settled down, it felt like he did a little bit better. I don't remember if he even gave up. I don't think he gave up another run after that inning, but so settled down a little bit. Managed to go 2 2/3. And so it seemed like the idea was to go Imanaga for the 4 innings or the pitch count, whatever that the plan was coming in, and then go to Ben Brown, who has been stretching out in spring training as potentially to be a rotation piece. And we've talked about Ben Brown as, like, this guy's got really good stuff. Like, he could be a bullpen weapon for the Cubs if they so choose to use him in that sense. Like, he could be a closing option if that's what they decide to do, because he does have really good stuff back there. But he is also someone that they've brought up when they traded for him. What was that, 3 years ago now almost? Have been bringing him up as a starter. And, when Justin Steele got hurt last year on opening day, Ben Brown replaced him in the rotation. He was a starter. Ben Brown bounced a little back and forth a little bit between starting and bullpen, but he did have 7 no-hit innings, 10 strikeouts in Milwaukee, just before he ended up going down for the rest of the year with that neck issue. That's still a little hard to explain what it was. So he has shown that he could be a viable starter in the big leagues. He hasn't shown it over like a long, super big sample, but he has shown it. And so it makes sense that the Cubs would use him in this way of multi-inning, just come out in relief of Imanaga, and that still kind of it signals that they're still looking at him as a rotation piece potentially, or at the very least depth. And maybe they don't use him in the bullpen to start the season. Maybe it's if he doesn't win that fifth starter's job going into the year, maybe he starts out in AAA and he's depth and he's staying stretched out and he's right there ready to go whenever needed, whenever his number's called, he's ready to go. But yeah, I mean, I think that the pitches especially again that death ball, that breaking ball, it looked good today. Honestly, it looked good today for the most part, and he wasn't always getting the chase on it. Maybe kept a couple up a little bit too much, but overall, I thought it was good at once that inning settled down, and now it kind of remains to be seen where he goes from here. I would be very shocked if he pitches at all tomorrow. So it now goes to getting back to Arizona, finishing out spring, and then seeing where he's at once the season starts. Got you there, Herb?
Sorry, I think my connection's a little messed up. But yeah, yeah. Sorry, the connection was a little flagging. The 40% called strike plus whiffs on his total pitches for Ben Brown, impressive. Like I think MLB average last year was like 28%, so he's above average there. And on that knuckle curve, which he threw the most today in his arsenal, he was a 46% called strikes plus whiffs. So he's got the arsenal. I would say he has better stuff than what Shota Imanaga showed today. But those are the differences where the pitchability, how to get out of those things. And Ben is young in his career, so he probably hasn't done enough to get the experience that Shota has got through Japanese baseball and then his 1 year last year with the Cubs in his major league debut to understand how to get people out, where you should be throwing the ball. Because that pitch, I think he got Shohei Ohtani out with that knuckle curve like it was 54 feet. It was not close to the plate, but the motion and how ferocious his fastball was working, it probably out of the hand looks like a top of the strike zone fastball, and then it just spikes into the ground. And Shohei Ohtani just flailed at it. He's like, "Oh my god, that is a championship pitch. If you got that guy to look that bad in that at bat to end the inning, you got the stuff." And so I hope the Cubs are going to try to use him as a swing guy or stretch him out. But that's a talent you need to have in either your rotation or working him into the rotation. Because I think at the end of the year, and I'm not a big time Matthew Boyd fan, that guy is much better than what Matthew Boyd can get you at the 2025, because if he stays healthy and gets stretched out, that's the top of the rotation arm.
Yeah. Like you mentioned the differences between what Shota puts out there and what Ben Brown puts out there. I mean, Shota's sitting four-seam fastball sitting like 92.6 average mile per hour. Ben Brown sitting 95.5 average mile per hour in his four-seamer. Like that's a 3 miles per hour. Like just people that know baseball know pitching. Like that's a pretty sizable gap between velocity on your four-seam fastball. I mean, that knuckle curve, I just looked, it had over 50% whiff rate. It had a 54% whiff rate on the death ball, the breaking ball, 13 whiffs on 24 swings. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. Like Ben Brown could be a real weapon out of this or in this rotation if that's how they choose to use him. Last year, it's hard to trust that, obviously, because of the injury last year, because of all the missed time from last season. He just didn't have a whole lot of run to really show that he needs to be in the rotation. Like he had flashes of that, but he didn't necessarily have all that run to show that he needs to be in there. The Cubs need to have him in there. But like, I'm with you. Like there's a reason that they are keeping him stretched out, and that's still the plan as of now. And they used him for that multi-inning stint today. Like I think that they're still looking at him as he's still a pretty viable option for this rotation once the season begins. But we'll see. And bullpen can change, the rotation can change, and yeah.
And the thing is, the Cubs are competing, so you can't really be that team is like, let's see him grow in this rotation. The Cubs, I think it's way too valuable for them to be like, let's get him 150 innings and see what he can do, or 140 innings and see what he can do, win or lose, and then have him develop at the major league level. Like, I would love for them to do that, but I think also it's more important for them to have some assurity. And if Matthew Boyd brings that, Colin Ray brings that, then you go with the veteran guys. And I think Craig Counsell will go with the person that has had more of a track record to get the job done than try with this young player who has amazing stuff. I think some of the best pitch run value last year in the majors in his brief time in 2024 with the Cubs. He's got, I think, 77 percentile in extension. So not only is that 95 getting there, it's getting there quicker. It's a faster 95 than a regular 95 because he just set those long levers just coming at you, and he gets that ball on top of you so quick. And that's why I think you get the fool and the swing and miss by Shohei Ohtani, because that ball, you have to make a decision because it's right there. He's like handed it to the catcher. You got to, all right, cool, you're out. And so I think that, if he was on a team that didn't have the playoff aspirations that the Cubs did, you would give him all the free reign to go and do your thing. But I think the Cubs have bigger fish to fry, so they won't be necessarily babysitting Ben Brown, even though I think he's ready for the rotation.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the Ohtani strikeout. Like that, I think that shows kind of like a I'm struggling to think of the word, but just kind of like the poise to settle back in, because that came right after that throwing error by Matt Shaw at third base. I think it was Miguel Rojas, and then the Pajes walk. So you had 2 strikeouts to start the inning. You get 2 guys on with 2 outs, and then you got Shohei Ohtani coming up. Like, that's a tough situation to be in, especially for a young pitcher. And he settles back in and then gets Ohtani on 3 pitches, 3 strikes in a row to start that, or to, a 3-strike strikeout. Like, looked like he was able to settle right back in, keep poised, and get Ohtani out there to not let any more runs on the board. Like, that's what you want to see out of a guy like Ben Brown. That's what you want to see out of a guy who's, again, missed a lot of time last season, trying to get back into it as far as pitching at the big league level and regular season games again, and show that he belongs up there. That's a good sign from him right there. It was very good to see him do that and bounce back right there very quickly after, a couple guys get on with 2 outs in the inning. But mentioning Matt Shaw, it's obviously his debut in the major league levels. First game was added to the 40-man. Keegan Thompson was designated for assignment to make room for him. Matt Shaw getting that first crack at third base for the Cubs. Not the greatest showing, obviously, to start his big league career. 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, had that throwing error at third base. Earlier in the game, did have a pretty good play, kind of a rocket over to the hot corner, and makes it look a little more routine. I want to say that was the second inning for the Dodgers, but had some signs of good things in this game, but obviously just the results, the box score didn't look too great for him. I'm curious, Herb, like what you thought of Matt Shaw in his debut today, but just kind of your thoughts on Matt Shaw as the Cubs' third base prospect going forward.
Like, the 0 for 4, I know people are going to look at it and they're like, oh, man, look bad, struck out right there. He didn't look good with the air. But this is the thing Cub fans and Cub management has to live with. He's a rookie making his debut in a foreign country in a time earlier than he's used to starting baseball activities. Like, you could do college things in March, but the major league schedule and the minor league schedule usually starts at the end of March, beginning of April. So this game is way ahead of his schedule, and usually pitchers are way ahead of hitters at this period of time during the season. So I would not put any extra pressure, any extra thoughts into his debut being as such. Even if he went out and hit 4 home runs, it would have been great and probably a record for a rookie making his debut. But I wouldn't put too much stock into that either because of the nature of this game. It is a major league game and it is a real game, but it's only one game. And so I would caution Cub fans and Cub management, stick with the kid. He's going to go through struggles. Yeah. I recall one of my favorite players, Robin Ventura. I think he started his career like 0 for 41 with a bunch of strikeouts. And then he turned in pretty solid career with like 5 or 6 gold gloves, was a world champion with, I think, the Yankees. Like, those type of things have to happen on a team where, yes, the expectations are huge for the Cubs this year, but you have no other alternatives except for a 39, 40-year-old Justin Turner, which you don't want to have him have an extended playing time. I know why they pinch hit for him in the ninth, because you're going against a tough lefty in Tanner Scott. You want a veteran who's faced tough lefties in his career like Justin Turner to do his thing. And that's fine. A late inning replacement for Justin Turner, a day off for Matt Shaw, smooth. But you need to let the kid fail at the major leagues and succeed at the major leagues. And I like where they had him in the lineup. Not too much pressure to drive a bunch of runs in, not a lot of like extra pressure, because he's the guy that you didn't sign Alex Bregman for because he's here. And he's the guy that you decided to send Cam Smith out to Houston instead of him. So he's the guy that needs to perform. You need to keep the expectations down in this kid. He's going to be an all right player, but to put expectations as if this is the guy that's filling third base for the first time solidly since Chris Bryant, that's tall timber. That's a lot to live up to. Chris Bryant was one of the best Cubs in his early career to ever start a career. And that is a tall timber to go against. So let Matt Shaw hit in the low 200s. Let him be that bad or that adjusting rookie. You're not paying him that much. The money and the pressure should be going to the players that make money. The Seiya Suzuki's, the Ian Happs, even PCA, even though he's not a big-time money guy, he's a little bit more established in the league, and he's looked at as more of a guy that should be doing things. Kyle Tucker in his walk year should be hitting home runs. Same thing with Michael Busch. If everything goes to plan with the rest of the people, the veterans on the team, you could have Matt Shaw play 130 games at third base and be bad, like a rookie should, but adjust, and eventually you'll see the progression of that third baseman, but keep the pressure off of him.
Yeah, it's kind of like a different, like when you mentioned Ben Brown, like the Cubs aren't in the spot where they can just afford to let him go out and keep pitching. Like, like you want to give him some run, but you also you have to win games. You have other options and stuff like that. They don't really have a whole lot of other options at third base if Matt Shaw struggles, right? Like they have John Birdie and Vidal Brujan and Gage Workman as other options, but like none of those guys are surefire third base starters on this team and leading them to the playoffs or anything like that. Like there's a reason the Cubs are letting Matt Shaw get that first crack at third base as he begins his major league career, right? Third base is like historically not a position that he's played. I think he played a majority of his time last year was at third base. Prior to that, he was a middle infielder. He was drafted as a middle infielder. He played in college as a middle infielder. Like third base is not the most natural position for him. And even you listen to scouts or evaluators talk like the arm strength isn't necessarily what you want it to be there, but it's good enough. The glove is good. Like he's improving there. And I think that's something that the Cubs talked about with Matt Shaw all of last year, that he's improving over there. And then he's always figured out how to hit at each level. But it's going to take time, like you said, for a rookie coming in facing major league pitching, the best pitching in the world, to go and start, and completely figure it out and have the success you want to see. Like in a perfect world, he'd come up and just be one of the best hitters on the team and immediately a 280 to 300 hitter and whatever that is, right? Like in a perfect world, he'd come up and just not struggle really. But that just doesn't happen with pretty much any guys. And you can't really have that expectation for Shaw. So yeah, I'm with you in that 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, a throwing error at third, first game in the big leagues, like not anything worth freaking out about. It is obviously something to monitor, right? Like how long of a leash do you give him before you may have to start even platooning him or giving some of those other options a little bit more playing time over there. Maybe you have to option him to third base for a little bit if things are going really poorly, right? Like that's something you monitor and start figuring out, like where does the leash end? But it's not after game one. You're going to give him a lot more leash than just game one to prove himself over there. Again, there's a reason the Cubs are giving him that first crack at third base. And so it's going to just take some time to see, like, how long does it take for him to start adjusting and figuring things out at the big league level and start having that success that you want to see from him. Like the Cubs do need it this year. Obviously they do need Matt Shaw to have to start finding some success this year. But like you said, they got a lot of other guys, more established guys here that should be leading the way and giving Matt Shaw that opportunity to just figure things out at the big league level and start proving himself whenever that time does come. But with Matt Shaw, like he went over 4 today, 2 strikeouts, but he faced really good pitching, right? Like Yamamoto, that Dodgers bullpen, like really good pitching on that side. But overall, the Cubs bats, even those guys that are more established, were pretty quiet. Dansby Swanson had a hit, a solid hit up the middle. Miguel Amaya hit one to the warning track, knocked in that first run, and then Ian Happ had a infield single to lead off the bottom of the third, I want to say. And then after that, the Cubs had one more base runner. It was a John Birdie's hit by pitch, and then I believe that was it. So quiet day from the offense. I mean, we both watched these games, and what did you think of the hitters, the approach, the way they attacked the pitchers? What were your kind of takeaways from those guys?
It's the first game, so take it with a grain of salt. But I've rarely seen a line where Yamamoto faced 19 batters. He's had 9 of those batters have ground outs. So none of them hit the ball in the air versus Yamamoto, like all in the ground, just boom, boom, boom. So a splitter was working. And then 4 strikeouts. So 13 out of the 19 batters you face, you get pretty easy outs. And that's how you do it. And so this could be because Yamamoto is tailoring himself better than he did in his first major league start, which was last year in Korea versus the Padres, where they got to him early. And then you saw the progression of Yamamoto through the season where he got better, understanding major league hitting and what major league batters are doing. And today, the Cubs just didn't have a good plan versus Yamamoto. The ball was on the ground, warm burners all the time, easy outs. And so one game versus a tough lefty or tough righty, is going to be not ideal. And it's in a foreign country. You're not ready to go. As I said before, pitchers are way ahead of hitters at this time, typically when Major League Baseball starts. And now we're starting a week and a half earlier than usual. So I won't give them too rough of a ride, but this can't be typical. You got that nice Kyle Tucker inside out swing to left field, only to get robbed right there by Tommy Edman. But there wasn't a lot of hard hit balls. I mean, I think he got the Birdie hit one really hard, like 112 miles per hour. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of hard hit contact off of Yamamoto and then the Dodgers bullpen. So the Cubs bats kind of quiet out there in Japan, and it's understandable, but you can't have this type of approach that they had. The results necessarily don't really matter to me because I'm not a fan, but when I see them not trying to elevate those balls, not trying to get the ball in the air, it's kind of troublesome, especially versus a pitcher that gives up the bombs every once in a while in Yamamoto.
Yeah, there was, and then just overall, not just Yamamoto, but with the relievers that came out for the Dodgers too. Like there were some hard hit balls sprayed around, but just weren't finding grass, and that's part of the game, right? Like sometimes those balls that you hit really hard just aren't going to find the grass; they're going to find a glove instead. Sometimes they fall, sometimes they don't. But it was just surprising to see that they just weren't able to get anything going after that. At that Happ infield single. Again, they're facing really good pitching, but when you're talking about a season in which you really like the postseason basically feels like a necessity at this point, making the postseason. Like those are the guys you're going to be facing. Those are the pitching staffs you're going to be facing in the playoffs. And you look at just who the Cubs have. They had Yamamoto today. They're going to have Sasaki, who pitching for the first time in the big leagues, but apparently just has a bunch of potential, right? Like that's all we've heard is the potential to be one of the better pitchers in the league. They got him tomorrow. They'll have Arizona when they get back and start their domestic slate of the last 160 games of the regular season. They'll have Arizona to start there. I guess they have the Athletics once the calendar flips to April, but you got the Padres, you got another series of the Dodgers, you got another series of the Padres, the D-backs, the Phillies. Like they have a lot of good teams on their schedule in April, a lot of good pitchers, right? you have to figure out a way to get something going against these pitchers, because you might face these guys a couple times just to begin the beginning of the season. And you don't want to look at the end of April and be like, you just did not have the offense you needed uh, going or after like through that first month. Right? Like that's something that last year just harped on was May and June. It was the offense just couldn't find anything. They just for the most part, they had their moments, they had their games, but for the most part, there was just weeks on end of just struggles with the offense. And you don't want to see that with this team right now. You don't want to see that. Kyle Tucker has, since in spring training, had the one home run. Outside of that, doesn't have a hit with that. And then today combined, I know I would say like still nothing to be worried about with him. Like he's a very good hitter over the long haul. He's gonna hit. The hope obviously that he stays healthy. He wasn't able to do that last year. Only played about half the games, but when he was healthy, he was hitting, and you expect that. I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt in there that he's gonna hit. Like Seiya Suzuki found a little bit more consistency last year throughout the season than he had the first couple years of his career. You want him to keep that going into this year, but just remain consistent, but be that 125 to or 130 plus WRC plus guy. I don't know if that's super realistic, but like that would be incredible if he's there for just a large portion of the season. Right, he's shown he can do that for an extended stretch. Ian Happ has just consistently been a good hitter for the Cubs the last 3 years. You expect him to just at least continue that. And then, PCA, if he can continue what he did in the second half, Miguel Amaya, if he can continue what he did in the second half, Dansby Swanson, if he can be more like the hitter that he was his first year with the Cubs. And then same with Nico Horner, just a little above average at the plate. Like those guys give you Gold Glove defense. So if they can also just be a little above average at the plate, like you're taking that. And then you're looking at a pretty solid lineup overall. But it's got to come down to, like, I know we're looking big picture right now, right? We just came off one game, but this one game is just not something that you want to see over the long haul. You don't want to see that tomorrow. You don't want to see that stretch out when the games restart stateside in Arizona. Like you need to find that offense from somewhere, and they have the offensive players to do it. But today was just one of those games where they did face really good pitching. Like you can hand it to the Dodgers for having the good pitchers out there, but the Cubs on the other side just need to figure out a way to put the at bats together, string the hits together, or the walks, or whatever it is, and put some runs on the board, because they it started out and then the Miguel Amaya double. You're like, okay, that they got to Yamamoto early, like maybe they can keep it going, and then outside of a couple base runners, it was pretty quiet from there, and that was obviously disappointing to see, but. Long season. So maybe harping on that a little bit too much, but
yeah. And I was wanting to know also from Cub fans, like every time I watch a game, this Pete Crow Armstrong is creating havoc. Yeah, I don't think he gets on like what you want a prototypical leadoff guy to get on, like a 360 average above, at least in his major league career yet. But that guy, to me, as a guy from looking from the outside in, he looks like he creates runs by himself. So I would think that, yeah, Ian Hamp's done well at the top of the order for the last couple of years. Is there any thought, maybe you've been covering Craig Counsell last year and then before that with David Ross, like, is there any thought in the Cubs front office or management staff thinking that, hey, we should have this guy up at the top of the lineup? He's more of the prototypical 80s, 90s leadoff hitter. And what he does on the bases, when he does get on the bases, will be more worth the aggravation and the struggles he'll have by not getting on base. Like, because I think he just is a run creator when he does get on bases, because he's just so damn fast and great base runner.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely been a consideration. It's definitely been the talk around like the Cubs, whether that's Cubs fans or reporters or whatever. Like PCA with his speed, with just the havoc he creates on the bases, like could totally be a leadoff hitter. I think where the Cubs coaching staff and front office see it right now is that like he's obviously still learning, he's still developing, he's still got to prove that his second half adjustments last year and the success he had for most of that second half last year, that he can carry that into this season. He doesn't have the on base percentage that you see teams in today's game like to have at the top of the order. And that is what Ian Happ does well. As he gets on base, he puts good at bats together. He puts the ball in play or takes his walks. He has, I think, more of like a major league average strikeout rate, but he does have that higher on base percentage, and that's something that they like having at the top of the order. But I can totally see if Pete goes through this season, he's the on base percentage is higher. He those adjustments and the improvements and the progression continue into the season. Like, I could totally see there being a chance where maybe they feel comfortable putting Pete at the top of that lineup, and they can bring Happ's bat down a little bit in the lineup just to stretch it out, right? Like, not necessarily like demoting Happ to the bottom of the lineup, but just like they can stretch out the lineup a little bit more because Pete has put himself in a position where they're comfortable with him leading off. I think that's because of just the speed and the base running instincts. Like, that's certainly possible as long as he can prove that at the plate he can up the on base percentage, that whether that's walk rates or just getting more hits and not striking out as much. Like, I think that's something he still has to prove, but that's something I can see happening. That's something I think a lot of Cubs fans do actually want to happen, and I think that's something that the Cubs will continue to monitor as Pete progresses in his own career.
Yeah, I think he's an electric player. Of course, with the glove, he is one of the best. So I hope that he breaks out and does well, because I like watching the kid play. He's an irritant when he goes against the White Sox for those 2 games. I think he hit a home run off the White Sox. It was irritating. And that's what you want. You want the opponent and their opponent's fans to be, oh, what a pest. What a jerk. I hate him. Yeah. And I think that you can utilize him. And like you said, if he shows himself at the bottom of the order to be a guy that can get on a reliable clip, doesn't even be like 360 at that point. I would settle for like 340 on base percentage for Peter Crow Armstrong, because, like I said, what he doesn't do with the bat, he can make up with his glove, and he can make up with the speed on the bases. So I think that the Cubs have nothing to worry. I know Cub fans woke up at 5 a.m. today, excited, anticipation, thinking about the World Series. It's a NLCS preview, and you lose that game 4-1. It's like, quick. Just after the 5th inning, kind of knew. It's like, it's pretty much over. We're not scoring runs. Yeah. It's over. And so don't be saddened, Cub fans. It's just one game. You were gonna lose a game this year already. You weren't going 162-0. So might as well get it out the way. Wake up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. or whatever time you got to wake up.
Do it all over again.
Hope for the best tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it's 4-1. Like we said, 4-1 loss.
I don't understand how they do that.
Yeah, 4-1 loss out in Tokyo for the Cubs. I mean, yeah, they weren't going to go 162-0. You'd rather them win as many as they can to start than not. But like, I think Cubs fans would have been fine with a split in Tokyo against this titan of a Dodgers team. I think that's going into this 2-game series. Like, Cubs fans would have been fine with that. So you still got the chance tomorrow. You do have Justin Steele on the mound, who, while Imanaga broke out last year, got the opening day start in Tokyo, like, and has earned that. Don't get me wrong, has earned that. Like, Justin Steele has been a guy since basically summer of 2022 that's been consistently really good to great for the Cubs. Right? Like, 2 years ago, he was I want to say finished fifth in National League Cy Young voting, and last year, outside of the injury hurt him as far as like being in those races again, but a lot of his rate stats, ERA, strikeout rate, walk rate, all that kind of stuff, they're pretty similar to the numbers he put up in 2023 when he was a top 5 finish in that All Cy Young voting. So you like having Justin Steele on the mound against this Dodgers team tomorrow. The Cubs are going to match up against Sasaki again, making his first foray into Major League Baseball. A guy the Cubs did recruit this offseason, but ultimately weren't able to bring him in. And so, yeah, it's just what we do when we watch baseball, especially like if you're a fan of whatever team. And Herb, obviously you're a Sox guy. You do the same thing with the Sox, right? Like, once you get over the game, maybe you talk about it on a podcast for a little bit, and then you flush it and turn the page to tomorrow. That's what the Cubs are doing, right? They're coming off a loss to start the year. They're gonna have to turn the page and get to tomorrow. But I think I still like their chances tomorrow too. I don't. I know Betts isn't playing. Betts isn't playing this series. Was Freeman supposed to play at all? Like, was he scratched from both?
I'm not sure if Freeman's going to play tomorrow, but it's another lefty. I mean, and Freeman doesn't care about lefties. So hopefully for the Cubs, he doesn't play. And hopefully for the Cubs, Justin Steele doesn't get hurt like he did in his first start. And I think that kind of derailed the early part of his season last year where he didn't pitch for a month. Like, he started the first game of the year and then didn't pitch until May after that. Then he had to ramp back up. So if you can get Justin Steele, get his work in, if it's 4 innings, if it's 5 innings, if he stretches it out to 6 innings, which I would definitely think he won't do because Dodgers hitters are patient. And secondly, he'll probably be on the pitch count just like Yamanaga was today. So I think you're going to get a quality performance out of Justin Steele. And if he gets out of that game healthy, strong, and filthy as he usually is, I think there's nothing that can stop him here. The sky is the limit. As you said, he's been a revelation on the Cubs. Like, I, as a guy who looks from afar, saw him pitch, and I was like, "Ooh, when the Cubs get this? This is good. This is like top of the rotation good." And that was a huge knock on what Theo and Jed had done before, where they didn't produce pitchers from their farm system. No longer. That guy is a stud.
Yeah, no, that's like you said, like that was the narrative around the Cubs. They just couldn't develop pitching, and Justin Steele is one of those first guys that not only just like, oh yeah, we can develop our own guys and make them into major league pitchers. Like, no, he turned into an all-star, an ace for this team, a top of the line starter, again top 5 Cy Young voting finisher. Like that's what he's become. And so again, even though Shota got the start on opening day, and I think a lot of that did have to do with him, with the Cubs being in Tokyo. I think you still make that argument that Justin Steele is still the ace, the number one of this team, until Shota takes it from him, because they're both really good. They're both top of the line starters for this team, and that's what you like to have. But like, there's definitely still an argument to be made that Justin Steele is the ace of the Cubs at this moment, and they're the team's number one, and the guy that sets the tone for the rotation and for the team as a whole. Before we leave, just an update from Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodgers beat writer. There's a quote from Twitter. Freddie Freeman said during his last round of BP today, he felt discomfort in the same area of his ribs he hurt during last year's playoffs. He said this is much less severe and still lobbied to play today. Said there's a 75% chance he's back in tomorrow, depending how it feels. So, sounds like Freddie Freeman is going to be a game time decision, right? Like, I don't know that I would expect the Dodgers to throw him in there if his ribs are hurting. I don't know Dave Roberts as well as other people do, so I don't know exactly how he'll work as a coach, but it seems like there's a good chance the Cubs miss Freddie Freeman for the second straight game tomorrow. And that takes out, that's what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, that you took out one of the team's best hitters for sure, but that's still a dangerous lineup no matter who's in there because of all the hitters they have in there. So Justin Steele's going to have his work cut out for him. The Cubs are going to have their work cut out for them. But I do like the team's chances tomorrow when they go up against Roki Sasaki and the LA Dodgers. What are your expectations, sir? Give me a prediction for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Score
what
prediction.
I'm wanting is that Seiya Suzuki takes his countrymen deep. Like, and the rest of the Cubs just understand that this Roki Sasaki's first baseball game. The nurse going to the Goliath of the Dodgers, and performance needs to be great for them to he didn't even sign a big time contract, but he's the chosen free agent this year. And as you said, the Cubs tried to get him and it didn't work out too tough. But I want the Cubs and their hitters to just like understand this is a person young in his major league career. Take some time to understand what he can bring to the table. Yeah, you've seen tape about his MPL years. That's not the same. Look at the tape when he came here and did his first bullpen. You see who hit him deep? Kyle Teel of the Chicago White Sox. He threw trash that game. And the White Sox B players lit him up. So understand that he is not going to be his Christmas right now. He's not going to be at the top of the rotation as he was. I think you're going to see what akin to what Yamamoto did last year in Korea. Wildness, and the Padres taking advantage of that. That's what the Cubs should do. As I said, just with Ben Brown, young in his career, not knowing how to get hitters out after some struggles initially with some walks and then not letting those things go. The same thing will happen with Roki Sasaki. He's jumping up a level. Japanese baseball is thought to be in between AA and AAA as far as the levels. So he's jumping up a level right now. Cubs, treat him to a rude awakening in the major leagues and get a couple runs off him. At least chase him before he gets to the fifth inning like you didn't do with Yamamoto.
So you're saying you're predicting the Cubs win. Is that what I'm hearing?
I am predicting the Cubs win. I think it's a tough place to play, especially knowing that you're not the team that the home folks are come to see. Yeah, you had two of their home country people, Imanaga and Seiya Suzuki, but they're looking at the three people on the Dodgers, even though only one played for the Dodgers yesterday. Or two played yesterday for the Dodgers. Then you're gonna get the same thing tomorrow with Sasaki making his major league debut, and of course the best player in baseball, and Shohei Ohtani. They got their one. I think they're satisfied. I think that Freddie Freeman probably won't play tomorrow because they got their one and they have 161 games left after yesterday. And so might as well just rest him. And I think, as we just talked about with Justin Steele, he's a great pitcher. I think he'll neutralize the Dodgers' bats just like Imanaga did today. And hopefully the Cubs bullpen keeps the Dodgers down themselves.
Yeah. All right, well, you heard it here first. Herb Lawrence predicting the Cubs to win. So I guess we'll see. We'll see if the Cubs can take a split out of Tokyo, come back to the States, finish off spring training, and head into that first Arizona series back stateside with a 500 record. So yeah, Justin Steele going up against Roki Sasaki and the Dodgers tomorrow morning. We'll be back here. I'll be back here. Hopefully Herb will join me again. But Herb, thank you for joining us today. Thank you everyone for listening or watching. If you're whether you're listening on podcasts or tuning in on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, rate, do all that great stuff. We'd love the support. We love your support anyway. We'd love even more support. But yeah, thanks Herb for joining us. This has been the Addison to 35th podcast. We'll talk to you guys later. See ya.